Hello, beautifuls. My name is Alyssa Love. Welcome to my channel where we talk about all things woo-woo, spiritual weight loss, menstrual cycle magic, and feminine energy. Today, we're going to be talking about cravings, especially junk food cravings or cravings for food that you used to have as a kid. So those nostalgic foods that maybe remind you of your childhood, they remind you of a good time or maybe a complicated time. And why are we having these cravings? Whether they are every once in a while, kind of sporadic, or if you get them all the time. Most of the time when people get cravings, they do one of two things. We either just fulfill the craving. We don't even think about it. We're just like, ooh, I want this. Let me go get it. Or we try to suppress the craving, right? So we tell ourselves it's not okay to eat that kind of food. That's a bad food. And so we push that craving down. But what I suggest that we do is something kind of in between, because our cravings are not just this physical thing, right? Of course, sometimes they come from a physical place, right? Where our body is craving a certain food. But when you're craving foods like junk food or candy or those nostalgic kind of childhood foods, there's something deeper going on, right? And every craving, every sensation, every feeling in the body is a message. So if we take the time to dive into what is this craving telling me, what is the message behind this, we can actually dig up some really deep-rooted stuff and do some healing on a soul level, right? So rather than just giving into the craving or pushing it away, we need to find this balance of the pause, right? And in that pause, in that space that we get to create, that's where we can ask questions. That's where we can kind of translate the message of this craving. So what I recommend you do is when you have a craving, for anything really, but especially for junk food or like those childhood kind of foods, give yourself space, right? To first recognize the craving, be like, oh, okay, I'm craving gummy bears, which is the one I'm always craving. And give yourself the space to recognize that craving. And once you recognize it, ask yourself like, okay, where is this craving coming from? What is the deeper underlying reason for this craving? Because if I really check in with my body, I'm probably not craving the nutrients that gummy bears would give me, right? I mean, it's possible. And also, I'm not saying that it's bad to indulge every once in a while in foods that bring up good memories for you, right? But the reason I'm kind of like creating this whole video right now is because I've been experiencing some of this myself lately. I've been doing some really deep soul work, and a lot of that has included inner child work, right? Some really deep inner child healing stuff from my own past. And as I've been doing this work, funny enough, I'm having all of these cravings for foods that I used to have as a child, right? And so I think that a lot of times when this happens, it's unconsciously like this part of us that is wanting to have attention, right? This inner child that is actually asking us to pay attention to it, right? It's that inner child that's looking for the joy and the pleasure, maybe in the midst of you uncovering some like deeper childhood wounds or deeper struggles that you had gone through as a child, right? Maybe those things are starting to be triggered in you currently. They're starting to come up. And so it's a really great opportunity for us to actually do some of that inner child healing rather than just fulfill the craving and kind of numb what that message might have been telling us initially. So instead of us ever pushing a craving away, right? I never, ever, ever recommend to anyone, any of my clients, to push a craving away or to deprive yourself, right? Because there's so much information in the craving itself, but also even in the indulging of the food, right? So if you have a craving, let's go with gummy bears as the example. You have a craving for gummy bears, right? And you kind of check in with your body and you're like, okay, I know that this isn't me craving the nutrients that a gummy bear could give me. I'm craving this for a deeper reason, right? Maybe you're not quite sure what that is yet. That's totally okay. Allow yourself to indulge in that food, but in a mindful way. Because just in allowing yourself to be present with the food, to eat it slowly, to eat it mindfully, to take it all in, you're going to receive messages, maybe memories. Things are going to come up for you when you take your time with that, right? And it might be as simple as the inner child part of you wants to access some fun, wants to access some play. And this memory of this food that brought you so much joy at one point is one of the ways that it knows how to access that, right? So there can be so many things going on with the inner child here. And this is kind of your job to uncover it. But let me tell you a couple of the things that could be happening. Like I said, your inner child could be just looking for expression, a way to have fun, a way to play. And if you're not giving yourself that opportunity to be in play and be in pleasure in your normal everyday, you might start to find yourself having these cravings for foods that are going to invoke that feeling of play and pleasure, right? And there's nothing wrong with finding joy and pleasure in food. There's just this fine line between whether we're giving ourselves enough of that in other areas of our life, or if we're trying to fill it with food, right? If we're trying to let food be the only thing that brings us joy or pleasure or play. So one of the things I invite you to do is to do a little scan of your life and ask yourself, where else am I allowing myself to play, to be in pleasure, to have fun, to have excitement, right? And see if you can start infusing more of that into your life. So another thing that could be happening is that your inner child is actually crying out for attention, right? Maybe there is something that is being currently triggered in your life, a past wound, a past trauma, something that you experienced. Maybe it's coming up for you again, and it's coming up for you to heal it, right? And if you're just numbing this inner child and this part of you that's trying to express this thing that wants to be healed, that wants to be seen with food, even imagining how sometimes parents, I imagine that they would just give their children food when they're upset, right? Something to make them happy, something to make them feel better, something to just distract them even, right? Like, are you doing that with yourself now? Rather than really addressing that thing that you're upset about, or addressing that wound that needs to be healed, addressing that trauma that's coming up, are you just numbing that? Or are you able to give yourself that space to explore what is going on with that inner child, what she needs from you, what needs to be seen, what needs to be heard? And this can be uncomfortable. Like, I know it can be totally uncomfortable and triggering, right? But this is where that deep soul expansion comes from, is from allowing ourselves to get out of our comfort zones, allowing ourselves to really dive into those past wounds and heal them so that we first become aware of them, and ultimately we can transcend them and they don't have to have a hold over us anymore. So give yourself the gift of diving into what these cravings can be telling you, rather than just fulfilling the craving or numbing the craving, pushing it down. Let yourself ask, why am I having this craving? What is the deeper purpose? What is the deeper reason? What was the trigger of this craving? So that you can start to uncover those deeper wounds and begin healing that inner child, or that part of you that is looking for that joy and excitement in food, rather than being able to be the source of that joy and excitement yourself. I can't wait to hear what you guys thought of this video, and I'm so curious to know, like, what are the foods that you crave? What are the foods that bring up those good childhood memories, that bring up joy and excitement for you? And again, never, ever, ever judge yourself for this. There's nothing wrong with enjoying these things, letting food bring you joy and pleasure. But it's about balance, right? It's about finding the balance between filling yourself up in other areas of your life so that you're not always reaching for food to fill that hole and to fill that void. All right, babes. So if you like this video, please let me know by liking, commenting, subscribing. It means so much to me, and I appreciate every single one of you. All right, have a beautiful day.